My sister showed a fake surgery report for her 6-year-old daughter to my husband, and he secretly sent $120,000 to her account without informing me. One day, I exposed her at a family event, and everyone was shocked. She brutally attacked me, so I called the cops, but when they arrived, my name is Nina, and I thought my life was simple, even perfect. Ethan and I were like any other young couple in Austin, Texas, working hard, saving up, and dreaming of a bright future. I was a graphic designer at a small but thriving agency, and Ethan was a marketing specialist at a local tech firm. We were planning to buy our first home and maybe even start a family soon. Life felt good, stable, and full of possibilities. But all of that came crashing down on a quiet Tuesday evening. I was sitting at the desk in our tiny apartment, trying to finish some freelance work before dinner. My email pinged. At first, I ignored it. Spam, I assumed, but something about the subject line caught my eye. Your husband's secret transfers, proof attached. I froze. My heart raced as I hovered over the email. Was it a scam? A prank? But curiosity, or maybe something deeper, pushed me to open it. The message was brief, but gut-punching. Nina, you deserve to know the truth. Ethan has been sending thousands of dollars to his mother and sister. Attached is the proof. Check it for yourself. I didn't want to believe it. I clicked the attachment, hands trembling, and there it was, a list of transactions spanning over 2 years. Ethan had been transferring $5,000 every month to his mother, Linda, and his sister, Megan. The memo on each payment read, Sophia's surgery fund. Sophia was Megan and Daniel's 6-year-old daughter. Sweet and bubbly, with her curly hair and big brown eyes, she was the kind of kid who made you smile just by being around. Ethan and I had always adored her, and it wasn't unusual for him to send the occasional gift. But surgery? I didn't even know she was sick. A cold wave of realization swept over me. If these transfers were legitimate, why hadn't Ethan told me? And $5,000 a month, where was all that money coming from? Our savings, perhaps? The savings we'd been building for our first house. Our future? I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Ethan come in until he spoke. Hey, Nina, what's for dinners? I turned to face him, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and anger. Ethan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, we need to talk. He looked at me, puzzled, then followed my gaze to the screen. The moment his eyes landed on the email, his expression changed, like a mask slipping off. Not surprise. Not confusion. Guilt. I can explain, he stammered, stepping closer to me. Explain what? I demanded. That you've been sending thousands of dollars to your mother and sister behind my back? That you've been draining our savings for Sophia's surgery? What surgery, Ethan? I didn't even know she was sick. He looked like he wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Finally, he slumped into the chair across from me.
It's not what you think, he said.
Then tell me what it is, I snapped. Ethan sighed and rubbed his temples. Sophia isn't sick. Megan, she said they needed the money for her surgeries, but I think it's more complicated than that. More complicated? I repeated, my voice rising. You've been hiding this for 2 years, Ethan. 2 years. How much in total? He hesitated before answering. About $120,000. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. $120,000. Our entire down payment for the house. Our future.
Gone.
Megan and Mom said they were struggling, Ethan continued, his voice almost pleading. Daniel's freelance work wasn't steady. They said Sophia needed help, and they couldn't afford it. I couldn't just say no. I shook my head in disbelief. So instead, you lied to me. You let me think we were saving for a house while you funneled all our money to them. Nina, please try to understand, he said, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. Understand what, Ethan? That your mother and sister have been manipulating you? That you let them? Or that you thought it was okay to lie to me about all of it? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth was written all over his face. I stood up, grabbing my keys and bag. Where are you going? He asked, panic creeping into his voice. I need air, I said. Don't follow me. As I walked out the door, my mind was spinning. My life had turned upside down in a matter of minutes. The Ethan I thought I knew, the man I trusted, had been keeping secrets from me. And for what? For a family that seemed to take and take without a second thought? I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let this go. If Ethan's mother and sister thought they could manipulate him, they were about to learn that they'd underestimated me. That night, I sat in my car, staring at the email on my phone. I felt betrayed, yes, but also something else, a spark of determination. I wasn't just going to uncover the truth. I was going to make sure they paid for every lie, every manipulation, every stolen dollar. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust, respect, and the life Ethan and I had worked so hard to build. And I wasn't going to let anyone destroy that. Not Linda, not Megan, not anyone. After that night, I couldn't look at Ethan the same way. I didn't know if I was more angry or hurt, but I knew I needed answers. The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. If he wasn't going to tell me the whole truth, I'd find it myself. While Ethan was at work, I opened my laptop and started going through our joint account. It was worse than I thought. Not only had he drained most of our savings, but there were smaller, consistent withdrawals labeled with vague terms like household support and extra care for Sophia. The amounts varied, but they added up fast, thousands of dollars over time. I opened Megan's social media accounts next, my stomach tightening with every post. Her latest upload was a photo of her lounging by a pool, holding what looked like a designer handbag. The caption read, "Summer vibes. Nothing beats some well-deserved relaxation." There were more photos, too. Spa days, expensive dinners, vacations. It didn't add up. How could someone who was supposedly struggling afford all this? The more I scrolled, the angrier I became. Sophia wasn't in a single picture that hinted at surgery or recovery. Instead, she looked happy and healthy, smiling for the camera, holding toys and balloons. I felt sick. The story Megan and Linda had spun was falling apart, and I hadn't even scratched the surface. But I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone who knew them better, someone on the inside. My mind went to Daniel, Megan's husband. I'd always thought of him as quiet and reserved, more of an observer than a participant in his wife's flashy lifestyle. Maybe he knew something. Maybe he'd talk. I called him that afternoon. "Daniel, it's Nina," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Can we meet? I have some questions about Megan and Linda." There was a long pause on the other end before he sighed. "What's this about?" he asked, but his tone told me he already knew. "I think you know exactly what it's about," I said. "I just want the truth. Meet me at the coffee shop on 6th Street. Please." Daniel showed up 20 minutes late, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He sat across from me, fidgeting with his coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. "Megan's going to kill me for talking to you," he muttered. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said firmly. "I just want to know what's going on. Why is Ethan sending them so much money? Is Sophia even sick?" He flinched at the mention of Sophia. "No," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sophia's fine. She's never needed surgery." My heart sank. Then why the lies? Why tell Ethan it's for surgeries? Daniel hesitated, then leaned in closer, his voice low. "Linda's behind all of it. She's been manipulating Megan for years, convincing her that family comes first, no matter the cost. Megan she goes along with it. She doesn't question it." "And you?" I asked. "Why didn't you stop them?" He laughed bitterly. "Do you think I haven't tried? Linda sabotaged my job offers when I first moved here. She called potential employers, made up lies about my issues, told them I wasn't reliable. She wanted us to stay dependent on her and Ethan's money. I gave up fighting a long time ago." I stared at him, horrified. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "What good would it do?" he asked. "Linda has a way of making you feel powerless. She controls everything, Megan, Ethan, even me. And now she's dragging Sophia into it." I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest. "This has to stop," I said. "Ethan and I have already lost so much because of her. She can't keep getting away with it." Daniel looked at me, his eyes tired but wary. "If you go after Linda, you better be ready for a fight. She doesn't play fair. When I got home that evening, Ethan was waiting for me. He looked nervous, like he knew I'd been digging. "Nina, we need to talk," he said. "You're right, we do," I replied, crossing my arms. "But first, tell me this. Why didn't you tell me about the money? Why did you let them take so much from us?" He looked down at the floor, ashamed. "I thought I was helping," he said. "Megan said they had no one else. Mom told me it was for Sophia, and I believed them." "You believed them," I said, my voice shaking. "But you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth?" "I didn't want to drag you into it," he said, looking up at me with pleading eyes. "I thought I could handle it on my own." "Well, you didn't," I snapped. "You let them manipulate you, Ethan. They've been lying to you this whole time. Sophia doesn't need surgery. She never did." His face went pale.
What?
"Daniel told me everything," I said. "Your mother and sister have been using you. And they're not just taking your money. They're destroying us." Ethan sank onto the couch, burying his head in his hands. "I was trying to help," he whispered.
You didn't help anyone, I said.
"You just let them take advantage of you. And now we're paying the price." For a moment, neither of us said anything. The room felt heavy with the weight of everything that had come to light. Finally, Ethan looked up at me, his eyes filled with determination. "What do we do now?" he asked. "We fight back," I said. "But we have to be smart about it. Linda's been playing this game for years, and she's good at it. If we're going to stop her, we need to be better." He nodded, a flicker of resolve in his expression. "Whatever it takes," he said. And in that moment, I knew we were in this together. We were up against a master manipulator, but for the first time, I felt like we had a chance. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reclaiming our lives and taking down the person who had nearly destroyed them. The days after Ethan and I decided to fight back were a blur of planning, digging, and preparing. It felt like we were assembling pieces of a puzzle we hadn't even realized existed. But every new discovery only deepened the betrayal and my resolve. Ethan and I agreed that we needed hard evidence. Linda and Megan had built their lies so carefully, layer by layer, that exposing them wouldn't be easy. I needed proof that they had been manipulating Ethan for years, proof that would not only clear our names but also hold them accountable. That's where Daniel came in. One evening, Daniel showed up at our apartment, holding a folder thick with papers and a USB drive. He looked nervous but determined. "I've been saving these for years," he said, handing them to me. "Call it insurance." Linda and Megan always thought they were invincible, but I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Inside the folder were bank statements, emails, and even text messages. It was all there, proof of the fake surgery claims, Linda's interference with Daniel's job prospects, and even messages between Linda and Megan planning how to siphon money from Ethan. But the most damning piece of evidence came from the USB drive. Daniel had secretly recorded a conversation between Megan and Linda. In it, Linda was coaching Megan on what to say to Ethan. "Just tell him it's for Sophia's surgery," Linda said, her voice cold and calculating. "He'll believe you. He's always been soft when it comes to family." "What if Nina finds out?" Megan asked. Linda laughed. "Nina? What can she do? Ethan will always take our side. She's just the wife. Family comes first." I felt my hands tremble as I listened. This wasn't just manipulation, it was outright cruelty. Linda had no remorse for what she was doing. To her, we were nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. With this evidence, Ethan and I decided it was time to confront them. We planned a dinner at Linda's house, inviting Megan and Daniel as well. It was risky, but we knew we had to take control of the situation. The night of the dinner, Ethan and I arrived early. Linda greeted us with her usual sugary smile, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. "So nice of you two to come," she said, her tone dripping with fake warmth. "It's been too long." Megan and Daniel arrived a few minutes later, Sophia skipping happily beside them. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. Sophia was an innocent child in all of this, unaware of the chaos her family had created. But I reminded myself why we were there. This wasn't about Sophia. This was about the lies. Dinner started uneventfully, with Linda playing the perfect hostess, but I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Linda," I said, setting my fork down, "we need to talk about the money Ethan's been sending you and Megan." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "Oh dear, whatever do you mean?" "Ethan's been so generous, helping his family in times of need." "Helping?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You mean lying to him about Sophia's surgeries and draining our savings for your own gain?" Megan's face turned pale, but Linda didn't miss a beat. "Now, Nina, that's a serious accusation. Do you have any proofs?" I smiled, pulling out the USB drive. "As a matter of fact, I do." I plugged it into a laptop we'd brought with us, and the recording of Linda and Megan played for the entire room to hear. The color drained from Linda's face as her own words condemned her. "How dare you record me?" Linda snapped, her calm facade shattering. "How dare you lie to us for years?" I shot back. "You've been manipulating Ethan, sabotaging Daniel, and stealing from us, all under the guise of family. Well, that ends now." Ethan spoke up, his voice steady but firm. "Mom, you've taken advantage of me for the last time. I believed you, trusted you, and you used that trust to manipulate me. Nina and I have evidence of everything, and we're not going to let you get away with it." Megan started crying, but her tears didn't move me. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "We needed the money. Daniel wasn't working and Sophia—" "Don't you dare use Sophia as an excuse," I said, cutting her off. "You've been exploiting her name to fund your lifestyle. Vacations, spa days, designer handbags. That's where the money went, isn't it?" Megan looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Daniel spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. "They're right, Megan. This has to stop. Sophia deserves better than this." Linda stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You ungrateful children," she hissed. "After everything I've done for this family, this is how you repay me?" "What you've done," Ethan said, his voice trembling with anger, "is tear this family apart. And now you're going to face the consequences." That night, we left Linda's house with the satisfaction of knowing we had exposed the truth. But the battle was far from over. Linda and Megan weren't going to back down easily. I could see it in Linda's eyes as we walked out the door. She was already plotting her next move. As Ethan and I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Linda wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. And if she thought she could still control Ethan, she was about to learn just how wrong she was.
I didn't sleep that night.
Even though we had confronted Linda and Megan and exposed their lies, I knew they weren't done. Linda's anger wasn't the kind that faded. It burned, vengeful and dangerous. I could feel it hanging in the air like a storm waiting to strike. The next morning, my fears were confirmed. Ethan received a frantic call from Megan. "Mom took Sophia," she sobbed. "She said she's protecting her, but I don't know where they've gone. I think she's planning something against you and Nina." Ethan and I exchanged a glance. We knew this wasn't about Sophia. Linda wasn't protecting her granddaughter. She was using her as a pawn, just as she had always done. This time, though, she had gone too far. We contacted Daniel immediately. He was furious, but not surprised. "Linda's been threatening to take Sophia for months," he said. "She thinks she owns us all."
"We need to find her," I said.
"Do you have any idea where she might go?" Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "There's a cabin. It's an old family property up by Lake Travis. Linda's kept it a secret for years, but Megan let it slip once. If she's hiding, that's where she'll be." Ethan and I didn't wait. We called Child Protective Services and the police, providing them with all the evidence we had gathered. While they mobilized, we drove to the cabin ourselves, unsure of what we'd find. When we arrived, the scene was eerily quiet. The cabin was tucked away in the woods, its windows glowing faintly in the fading afternoon light. We parked a short distance away and approached cautiously, unsure of what Linda might do if she saw us. Through the window, we saw Linda pacing the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. Sophia sat on the couch, clutching a stuffed animal, her face pale and scared. My heart ached for her, caught in the middle of this nightmare. As we debated our next move, Daniel arrived, his face set with determination. "I'm not letting her get away with this," he said. He stepped forward, knocking firmly on the door. Linda opened it, her face twisting with anger when she saw him. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. "I'm here for my daughter," Daniel said. "You have no right to take her." "I have every right," Linda hissed. "You're an unfit father, and Ethan and Nina are dangerous. Someone has to protect Sophia." Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm.
"No, Mom. This ends now."
"The police are on their way. You're not taking Sophia, and you're not manipulating us anymore." Linda's face darkened, but before she could respond, the sound of sirens broke the tense silence. Police cars pulled up to the cabin, their lights flashing. Officers quickly surrounded the property, and Linda's defiance crumbled. She was taken into custody, screaming accusations of betrayal and lies, but no one believed her anymore. Sophia ran into Daniel's arms, clinging to him tightly. "Daddy, I was scared," she whispered. My throat tightened at her words, but I knew she was finally safe. Back home, the aftermath of Linda's arrest felt surreal. CPS awarded full custody of Sophia to Daniel, and Megan, shaken by everything, agreed to start therapy to break free from Linda's influence. Ethan and I worked to rebuild the trust that had been shattered, focusing on our future instead of the past. For the first time in years, it felt like we had control over our lives again. The lies, manipulation, and betrayal were behind us, and in their place, we found something stronger: truth, resilience, and the promise of a better tomorrow.